The E.S.S. Wellington, An Interstellar Tale by J.N. Wdowski. For your full enjoyment, be sure to read or listen to the end. Chapter 6, Ice Run, 15 hours and 5 light-years later. Mom Dingo brought the Wellington into orbit above Medela 5. The frozen world below them filled the main view screen on the bridge. Mueller noticed that the equator of the planet was not frozen over. It consisted of open ocean and some landmass that appeared more like tundra, south of the Arctic Circle back on Earth. "Are you sure this is an ice planet?" Mueller questioned Novikov, his science officer. Novikov responded from the bridge's science station. "You're correct. It is not an I-class world. It is Class T, and from my scans, it had been a Class T prime in its past." A Class T prime? Mueller was confused. How could that be at this distance from its star? It is not in the Goldilocks zone. "I am picking up life signs on the planet," Lieutenant Stenval from the sensor station reported. "Life?" Mueller was surprised. "I am picking it up too," Novikov confirmed. "There are large sea creatures in their oceans. Very large." "How could that be?" Mueller asked Novikov. "I'm guessing. Most likely this world formed in its Goldilocks zone. Either its sun weakened, putting them into a permanent ice age, or a large rogue gas giant went through their system and tugged them out of their original orbit. There is life on the planet. It is not just the massive sea creatures." Novikov grinned. "This is a massive discovery, Captain, worthy of a dedicated research ship. Can we replenish our water? That is my concern now." Mueller understood the importance of the discovery, but getting his crew back to Telsur 3 hydrated was his primary concern. Stenval replied as he examined his readings on his display. "The equator oceans are salt water. They would have to be desalinated, but the ice is fresh water. Near the equator would be our best option to harvest ice. Near the giant sea creatures?" Mueller did not like the sound of that. "The whole planet is covered with ice. Why tempt those shores? The atmosphere is nitrogen-rich with enough oxygen for our teams not to need spacesuits. Although, north of the equator, the temperatures are so extreme working in spacesuits would be required," Novikov answered. "The equator is warm enough that thermal clothing would be enough to do the work. So, as long as we stay out of the water, we should be okay. That is, if the large sea creatures are carnivores," Mueller asked. "Most likely at those sizes with minimum plant life on the planet, they are most likely carnivores," his science officer hypothesized. 1 hour later, all 4 shuttles were on the surface, close to one of the equatorial open oceans. 4 teams were using lasers to cut and harvest large blocks of fresh water ice that floated near the shore. The teams used anti-grav dollies to transport the ice blocks onto the shuttles. Basilone and 6 of his fleet troopers were securing the perimeter of the location. "How are you doing, Frost?" Mueller from the bridge had a zoomed-in orbital view of the work site. "We are making progress," Frost responded over the biting winds of the world. "My sensors on my helmet are having a lot of interference." "Magnetic field," Novikov explained. "The planet's magnetic field is strong enough to keep them safe from solar winds. But the planet seems to have multiple polar points that are fluctuating rapidly. It would severely interfere with their sensors. On the other hand, such a dynamic core will create hydrothermal vents, greatly promoting life under the frozen oceans." Explaining why such large creatures could be supported without much plant life, Mueller wanted to be sure that his understanding of exoplanet biology was sound. "Aye, Captain. It is a very reasonable hypothesis," his science officer confirmed. "Basilone." Mueller turned his attention back to the landing party. "Yes, Captain," Basilone responded over the headset of his combat helmet. "I assume your sensors are not any better?" Mueller asked. "Aye, sir, but we are keeping our eyes open." Basilone reported, "As long as the winds do not kick up the snow too much, we have a clear line of sight of at least a couple hundred yards." "Well, there is life down there. We just don't know exactly what. So keep a strong vigil," Mueller commanded. "Aye, sir," Basilone responded, as the biting wind began to kick up snow into his face. The snowdrift got so severe that they lost their orbital view of the landing party. Mueller turned to Rogers. "Switch to Basilone's helmet cam." The main screen projected the unstable image from Basilone's helmet. "Can you clean up the image? All I see is white." That is all that is in front of me at the moment, Basilone confirmed. The winds are rolling off the ocean, and we are getting hit with major snowdrifts at the moment. Switch to infrared orbital view, Mueller ordered. The main bridge screen's image changed to the heat signatures of the landing party and the 4 shuttles hidden in the whirl of snowdrifts. Mueller stood as he noticed additional heat signatures on the screen. Who's that? That is not our team, Stenval responded. Most likely native life forms. Basilone, you have several alien life readings heading towards your position, Mueller warned him. I cannot see anything, and my helmet sensors are completely scrambled. There is too much interference. Basilone responded as he tried to see through the swirl of snow that was being stirred up by the wind. Eyes forward, Basilone ordered his fleet troopers. We have visitors. His radio signal began to crackle and interrupt. Weapons fire was heard through the harsh wind on Basilone's microphone, followed by a loud, terrifying scream. On orbital view, one of the heat signatures of a fleet trooper made contact with the heat signature of one of the alien creatures. Suddenly, there was only one heat signature. Frost, pack it up. I want your people out of there now, Mueller ordered his XO. It is hard to see, Frost responded. The snowdrift is too severe to know where our shuttles are. Then, just as sudden as the winds had blown onto the shore, they dropped to a light breeze. The landing party finally had a clear view of their surroundings. Once they did, the remaining fleet troopers began to open fire at the large white furred mammals, with dark soulless eyes that were stalking their positions. Their pointed rabbit-like ears focused on their prey. They looked like a hybrid of wolves and polar bears. They had long, powerful tails for balance. Their claws were black and as long as knives. Growling, they flashed their glistening yellow fangs as they were hit by weapons fire. A few charged the fleet troopers, taking multiple hits before finally being put down. Those that chose not to charge retreated to go off and lick their wounds. Secure, was echoed from each of the troopers reporting into Basilone and the bridge crew aboard the Wellington. Get your people back up here ASAP before those winds pick up again. Mueller commanded, Basilone, retrieve your fallen trooper. Looking over the blood stain on the snow where his man had been, Basilone took a moment before replying, There is nothing to retrieve. On his view camera in the near distance was the dead beast on a snowbank near the shore. We at least took out what attacked Marshall. With a screeching roar, a giant sea monster rose from the ocean. Pink and purple chemical lighting illuminated its dorsal fin that traveled down the back of its long, black and slimy body. Its side fins fanned out with sharp spikes on the ends. It bore its long, sharp fish-like teeth as its large yellow sphere-shaped eyes briefly looked at Basilone. It then turned and focused its attention upon the snow beast carcass on the bank. With great force, the monster came down upon the large beast, and in one bite engulfed it whole. Then, just as quickly as it has appeared, it slithering back into the depths of the black alien waters it had emerged from. The entire bridge crew all gasped in surprise and shock by the sheer size of the monster and how quickly it appeared and disappeared. Mueller could feel the air rush off the bridge. He was as rattled by the sight as his bridge crew. Finally regaining his composure, he addressed the landing party. I strongly recommend your team leave with what you have already. Aye, Captain. Basilone ordered through his headset for his men to withdraw back to the shuttles and avoid the shoreline. Without hesitation, the last of the ice blocks and fleet troopers were on board the 4 shuttles. Powering their engines, the landing craft kicked up the snow as they lifted off the surface. Were we able to harvest enough ice? Mueller questioned his XO. We should be good, Frost reported as the shuttles ascended from the ice world and back into orbit to the waiting Wellington. Please continue to Chapter 7, Shadowed.
To support the author, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.